Hey everybody, welcome back to another As Per My Ability video. If this is your first time at As Per My Ability, greetings, hello, welcome. My name is Andrew Davidson. I make content here at As Per My Ability about board games, card games, and all the people and fun that we have playing our favorite hobby. If you are new to the hobby, this is a good channel for you to check out because you'll be able to see new games, and maybe I'll put something on your radar that you'll be interested in checking it out. If you are a seasoned gamer, then this is a great channel to see what other board gamers are saying about board games. Maybe if you're like me and you just like watching content on YouTube about board games and card games, then this is a great channel for you as well. So no matter where you are in tabletop board gaming or tabletop role playing, this is going to be a pretty good channel for you to keep focused on. You can always do that by comment, like, subscribing, smash the like button, and make sure you hit the bell so you get notifications when we post new videos. We post new content every week. Well, hey, before we get into this video, I want to give one quick plug before we continue on, and that is www.aspermyability.com. Not only am I just plugging the website, but I'm plugging the audio section. It's going to be called the Audio Archive, where I have a podcast, but it's not a podcast like most people sitting around talking about games. It's a podcast of a series that I do about history in game. They take a lot of history, it takes a game, pairs it together. It's an audio recording, so it is like a podcast, but it does have an RSS feed, so you can subscribe to it and get notifications when something new goes up. The episodes go from about 10 to 15 minutes, which are perfect for your drive to work in the morning or your drive home in the evening. Hey now that we got the plug out of the way, let's talk about the video for today. Today's video is about a board game that is a story-driven, a narrative-driven, competitive game, an app-driven game where the world is dynamic because choices you make will affect and change the world that you're living in as you take on the role of a character living within this dynamic world as you search for your destiny. Hey everybody, welcome back to the video. Like I said, today we're going to be talking about Destinies, and I already teased a lot about what Destinies is at the beginning of the video, but I want to talk about the specs first and then we'll get into it. So Destinies came out in 2021. It is by Lucky Duck Games that I really enjoy. I like their Chronicles of Crime series. I enjoy it. Each scenario, as there are 5 scenarios in the game, takes 2 or more hours to play, depending on whether if you're playing solo or if you're playing multiplayer. Which brings me to the next point I want to make, is that the player count is 1 to 3. So just keep that in mind. Most games are kind of the standard is either, you have 2-player games, 4-player games, and then you have your party games or your higher count games. This one is kind of an literally odd game because it only plays up to 3 players. So if you're thinking about picking this one up for a group of you and 3 other people, this is probably not going to be a good one for you to pick up. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of content in this video because the fact that Destinies is a story-driven game, which means spoilers. I'm not going to spoil really anything in this video, so I'm not going to be going through the stories are talking about what the stories are, but I'm going to give you a general sense of the game so that you know whether if it's something you want to add to your Amazon cart or see if you can pick it up at your local FLGS. Destinies is a dark medieval fantasy game where players are going to be taking on the roles of people that are living within this world, like a priest or a knight or a nun or maybe even a thief or an assassin. The goal of the game is for you to wander about on this grid that is composed of cards. This is very akin to the Seventh Continent, if anyone knows anything about that game. You basically create the board as you go because the board is all cards, and so you'll stick them together. And the app, which I'm going to get into eventually, will delineate and show you what to do and how to put out which cards go where and things like that. But before I talk about the app, because I do want to get into that towards the end, we'll just talk about the gameplay in general. So Destinies is, like I said, 5 scenarios. Every scenario is completely independent of itself. We actually, when I say we, I play Destinies with another player. So I played all my games of Destinies 2-player, except for one. One game, we had a third person just jump in, a female, and she jumped in and learned the game. It's super easy to play, as I'll talk about in a minute. And so you can definitely have players drop in, drop out. I wouldn't necessarily consider this a campaign game, although there is a campaign style to it because you are supposed to go through scenario 1, 2, 3, 4. You're not really supposed to jump around. It doesn't really feel like much of a campaign game to me. You can play this game solo, which I know a lot of people have. I actually planned on playing it solo until someone else came along and decided to be my Destinies partner, and we took on and we played, like I said, all of the scenarios except for one of them we played as a full game of 3 players. This is not really a cooperative game at all. Although it's not a competitive game, I mean it is, but it's not a competitive game meaning I need to go across the board and do something to you and like fight you, or there's not a lot of player interaction in a lot of direct ways in this game. It's just kind of like I'm roaming with, through this world, you're roaming about in this land, and we may cross paths, but we don't really care, because to win the game, you have a private objective that is on the back of your character card, and the character cards have their destinies. So in order to win the game, you have to fulfill whatever it says on your destiny. So for example, let's say the back is find a secret entrance into the king's castle. Let's say the king's castle is completely boarded up because the king is paranoid because he feels like he's going to be assassinated. So there's no way in or out of the castle, and your destiny is to find a way in by traveling throughout the land, talking to people, gaining items, using items, doing skill checks, all of that fun stuff. If you manage to find a way into the castle, then there's usually a finale, which means you have to do quite a few skill checks. You got to have yourself beefed up. Your character's got to be kind of beefed up by the end. If you win the finale, then you win the game and you win that scenario and you move on to the next one. So as you can see, there's really not a whole lot of like direct competition other than just speed. Other than, can I find the way to my destiny quicker than the way that you find your way? And other characters will have different objectives or destinies. You might be looking about stuff about the castle. I want to know information about the guards. I want to know information about the sewers that lead underneath the castle. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Whereas the person playing next to you doesn't give a crap about any of that stuff. They're wondering about They're really looking for information about magic within the land that has been decimating the crops of these farmers because they've been cursed by a witch. I don't know, just making stuff up. I like my story games to be cooperative. I like them to be where we're either building a story together as a team, or we're just going through a story together as a team. To be a competitive game, at least marketed as a competitive game, it just feels kind of awkward. The skill checks all come from the app. Like I said, there is an app that you need to use, so you need to have a phone or a tablet. We used a really big, one of those big iPad tablets. It was beautiful. But you definitely 100% need the app to play, because the app will show you how to lay out the map when you explore, what tiles to put out. They're actually not tiles, they're cards, just like Seventh Continent. You put out cards and you kind of create and explore this map and find people, and then you can click on the app to say, I want to go talk to the bishop, and then it's your typical Elder Scrolls or Skyrim where you talk to someone and then they say, oh, hey, how's it going? What are you doing today? And then you get to choice A, B, C, or do you want to just do nothing at all? That's really nothing new. I mean, that goes back to games from the 2000s, video games from the 2000s, where you get to pick what you want to say. Do you say A, B, C, or D? That's not really new, but that's how it works in the game. The app also remembers a lot of things, so they'll remember if you've learned certain information so that it triggers the finale when you get to it. Otherwise, it's a competitive game and you don't know what everyone else is doing, so how would you keep yourself honest as far as winning or losing the game? So the app does all of that for you, and it's absolutely brilliant. Now, Lucky Duck Games has made Chronicles of Crime, or Chronicle of Crime, which also uses an app, and that's brilliant as well. So 2 home runs from Lucky Duck Games for their apps being great and just being brilliant as far as how they're implemented. They don't necessarily fully take over the game, although I've heard other reviews and I've watched some of you YouTubers out there say, I played it solo and I didn't even set up a gosh darn thing on the table. I just looked at the app. So I like to have it be a game. I want it to be on the table. That's just me. So otherwise, you're going to be going about, messing about with the app and meeting people, finding out information, and doing skill checks, rolling some dice based on where your skills are at to attack a werewolf. Maybe a werewolf jumps out, or to maybe jump up on a ledge, and so you have to roll skill checks in order to do that. Very simple game. In fact, I wouldn't necessarily really call this game much of a game at all, but that's what I want to end on, and I'm not ready to end yet. The last thing I want to talk about in the app is that it uses the QR codes that Chronicle of Crime uses. So you're going to need to, I guess the laptop probably wouldn't be the best, but even with our tablet, you're going to need to scan cards in order so you could go to the bishop. Let's say I want to ask the bishop about this card that I have. I have a card that is of an ancient sculpture of something. I don't know what it is. I want to ask him about it. So I hit the button. Well, first I travel to him. I hit the button and then it opens up the camera and I can scan the card, and then the bishop will say, I don't know, looks pretty old to me. Or he might say something else. That part is brilliant. I mean, they've used that in previous games. So that part is just brilliant. The technology is really awesome. It's intuitive. It remembers stuff, like I said, but there's also stuff on the table, or at least there should be stuff on the table for all you single players that didn't do it. Whatever. So yeah, as you can see, I've put up some of the gameplay, some of the app, just to show you a little bit of how the app works. Everybody gets a turn, so you go around the table, and then that's the end of a day. And so then it starts day 2, and then day 3. And the app, depending on the scenario, knows like certain things trigger on certain days. So if you're going slow and you haven't gotten to a part that the app says someone should have gotten here by now, it will do things. If there is a part of the world that is falling in darkness, you never know. One day, all of a sudden, day 7, some cards may disappear, or you flip them over and they've gone black. Stuff like that. So the app is really intuitive. But the last thing that I wanted to talk about is whether if I really feel like this is much of a game. And I think you can already guess that I don't really feel like there's a lot of gameplay here. Now there is, I totally agree there is. You do have a character, you've got a character board, you've got abilities or attributes, you do rolls like with dice. There's skill checks. There is a very tenuous gameplay here. The game really relies on the story. Now, everyone's going to have different stories. Well, that's cool because then you could have some replayability by playing different characters. Yeah, I get that. But a lot of the stories were very generic. The theme is very generic, kind of fantasy. It's a dark fantasy world. It's a medieval world. But that's about it. The stories don't have a whole lot of really coolness to them. It's a lot of go and talk to this person, go and find this. Do you have this item? Oh, you don't? Well, okay, then something else happens. That's about it. So I really take a look at Destinies as less of a gameplay. You're not going to worry about strategy, really. You're not going to worry about what you're going to do on your turn. You pretty much already kind of know where you need to go or what you need to do. That's really not what this game is about. It's about unraveling the story and the exploration. I really like exploration games, and that's one of the things I loved about Destinies is that you start off with such a limited world. It's like the fog of war, and then you and your other players, I suppose, will travel out and uncover some of the world. That part's awesome. I really enjoy the exploration part of it. The last thing about this is that some of the scenarios can run rather long in Destinies. Like I said, it takes about 2 hours is what they say. Some of our games, in fact, when we added in a third player, the game seemed like the duration went way skyrocketing up there. So depending on your player count, some solo players, they sat down and they're like, I cranked out a scenario in about 20 minutes. Again, they didn't set up and do all the stuff with the cards and the miniatures and everything. So they say that you can play a scenario in like 20 minutes or 30 minutes. If you play it the way that the designers are made it to be played, it's going to take you a couple of hours, especially multiplayer, especially if you play with 3 players. Not saying that that's a bad thing. Not saying it's really a great thing. It is what it is. So Destinies, what do I really think about it? What do you think about it? I am not one of those get your app out of my game people, because they're out there. They're on the internet. They're out there. I'm not necessarily one of those people because the app really does drive the game and it drives the story and it takes care of all of the bookkeeping and story aspects that you're not supposed to know about, like your finale. There's no way to cheat and have that be a whole stack of cards. This box is cheap and it just comes with a lot of minis in it and some cards to lay out for your map. And that's why it's so cheap, because they can just basically extrapolate everything and put it into an app. Now, to compare this to the Seventh Continent, which doesn't use an app, I still prefer the Seventh Continent over Destinies. However, the Seventh Continent is like a game, game. This, I would say, is more of a choose your own adventure with a little bit of dice rolling to see if you succeed or not. That's what Destinies, flip it over. That's what Destinies is in a nutshell. It's basically a choose your own adventure that you're playing with your friends, where you're all trying to achieve your own unique destinies to get to the finale, to win the game by winning at certain challenges and beefing your character up, leveling your character up so that you can take on whatever your finale is. That's all I have to say about Destinies. This is where I'm going to leave us. Once again, my name is Andrew Davidson. You've been watching As Per My Ability, and I look forward to seeing each and every single one of you at the next video. If you've played Destinies, I really want to know, how did you play it? Leave me a comment. Comment below. Did you play it solo? Did you actually put everything out on the table? How long did it take you to play? I'm really curious. So anyways, I will see everyone at the next video. Take care.